All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee Q&A. Your daily dose of Coffee Q&A here on the Onocoffee channel. I'm your host, and if you're just joining us for the very first time, we do this live stream most Monday through Fridays, weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, talking about coffee, and that's what we're talking about today. How to make espresso. I got a comment, and let me just look up here the question from, where is it? Here it is. Come on now. From Alex Turner, he says, so I'm relatively new to espresso making, and I have one confusion: coffee dosing. On many YouTube videos, it seems most people define a shot of espresso as around 15 to 18 grams of coffee beans. I have an 18-gram basket from my Gaggia Carezza, but at the same time, some call it the double shot. So if I want to make one espresso cappuccino /cappuccino, etc., how much do I use? And if I want to make two, do I just make 2 portafilters worth, or do I just use 18 grams of coffee? But let it run longer with two spouts to get the same 2-to-1 ratio in both cups. Cheers. So that's our question for today. Kent, how are you? Good to see you. Now, I think one of the best ways to approach this with espresso dosing, and to get to the later part of his comment, is to understand what is basically an espresso. So the one thing that's nice about coffee is that coffee has been being made for hundreds of years now. Espresso has been made now for well over 100 years. I think Bezzera started their first espresso machine sometime around like 1920 or something like that. So we've got 100 years of working with espresso to fall back upon. And one of the pioneers and one of the people that was really instrumental in developing the technology as well as the definition for espresso was Ernesto Illy. And he was the guy that founded Illy Coffee. His son is Andrea Illy, who actually passed away in 2008. But I was lucky enough to meet, is that right? Did I get that right? No, it was Andrea that started, and Ernesto, hold on. I want to make sure I get this right. Oh, yeah. So Andrea Illy was his father. Ernesto was the son. And it was Ernesto that passed away in February of 2008. Rewind a little bit back to February of 2007, a year before, and I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Illy. And so what happened was I was in Ethiopia. I was in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. We're at the East African Fine Coffee Conference. My first trip to Africa. And I was there, and I was waiting to register at the conference. And I'm standing in line, and Dr. Illy, Ernesto Illy, is in front of me. He's literally standing in front of me with his wife. Very, Italian, European. Europeans are always very poised and nicely dressed. And for whatever reason, I'm just standing there, yokel, new coffee dude. He turns around and he's like, "Hello, I'm Ernesto." And I was like, yeah, dude, I know exactly who you are. Why are you talking to me? But he introduced himself. He's really super generous and super kind. And we chatted just for a few minutes while waiting for him to register. And then, of course, I didn't get to see him after that point. But that was my one interaction with him. And it was his father and the company of Illy that did all this research into espresso, trying to understand it, trying to develop concepts and standards for espresso. And so all of our work in coffee is kind of based and built upon the work that they did. It's always like you stand on the shoulders of giants, right? These were the giants, right? So that's how it all kind of came about. But through the years, it was the Illy group that determined that they determined the standard for espresso, which is 7 grams of coffee for 1 ounce of espresso, right? So 1 shot of espresso is made with 7 grams. That's their standard. That's what they came up with, which is why when we talk about we've always talked about espresso. Double shots are typically 14 grams, right? Nobody says, I can see the confusion. I remember wondering this too. Yeah. There's so much confusion out there because, and it's true with anything that you're new to, any pursuit, is that there's just so much to learn. It's like everything's bewildering and there's so much confusing information and so many gurus out there that are telling you all kinds of like things to believe in. Like there's people talking about 18 and 36, and then there's Googles like me talking about 21, and like, well, why would you want to do that stupidity, right? You're like, why would you do that? That's dumb. The standard is 7, right? And why would you want to do more? And so there's a whole world of things that are out there that can be very confusing to the newcomer. And hopefully we try to find ways to simplify that. Mom says, good morning to you, Mom. How are you? Nemo says, back in the day, I knew nothing about espresso drinks. Didn't really order them either until I did. And that's how it's always when you take that plunge, right? It's like you just take that, you're like, I don't know anything about it. I'm just going to attack it and hopefully come out, smelling pretty on the other side. And luckily, we tend to. Andrew, good morning to you. So the Illy group has decided or found through research. They did a lot of research. That's one thing about Illy is that they did a lot of research and testing. And so they came up with the standard of 7 grams of coffee to make a single shot of espresso. Double shot, 14. Triple shot, 21. Right? And over time, they also developed the amount of water that would make the volume of it. So the volume would be an ounce. Yeah, gosh, 30 mils, right? 30 mils? 30 mils. Or is it 15 mils? I'm so bad at that conversion. But they would make it so that was the standard, and then everything you could do multiples off of that. They also determined the temperature, about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, 198 really is the Fahrenheit reading, 95 I think it is in Celsius. And they also came up with, how much pressure you're going to put on it. So 8.5 to 9 bars of pressure. And these are the general parameters that they were able to establish to get really quality espresso. And it's still, a lot of that is what we carry through in modern times. A lot of that is still very true today. And all of our espresso machines are kind of set up to handle that kind of thing, which is why when we talk about making espresso and we talk, let's say like the AeroPress, when Alan Adler came out with it in 2005, he was like, it's kind of a way to make espresso. And all of us punk kids in the business were all like, well, that's not espresso. What are you talking about, man? Like everybody's like, oh. But the truth is that what is espresso, right? Espresso, as a term in Italian, is really just about rapidness, fast. It's a fast way to make coffee. Espresso is really a fast way to make coffee. The AeroPress can be a fast way to make coffee. So in some respects, there is that authenticity to the word, but, we really have defined espresso to be this concentration of coffee liquid for people to enjoy. And the way that people drink it is very different depending on where you are in the world. So, but let's go back to what we're saying here. We're talking about why the confusion. So our question asker, Alex, is asking, I gotta turn it the right way so I can read it all in one shot. Otherwise, it's hard to read. So he says, on many YouTube videos, it seems that most people define a shot of espresso to around 15 to 18 grams of coffee beans. Now, when he talks about an espresso, I think that he's conflating that with what people are typically making, right? Most people do not make single shots of espresso. Most people will make double shots of espresso. So 15 to 18 grams, which is more than the typical double shot. Like if we think of, I like to consider the standard that Illy developed, the 14 grams for a double shot, and use that just as a baseline, just as a reference point, right? A point that people can reference so that we all have a single point of understanding to discuss around. So 15 to 18 grams, once you get past, well, okay, let me think about this. If you're new to coffee, new to making espresso, my encouragement is to, listen to the gurus, listen to the YouTubers. They all have something to offer, but really think about it in this return. Take your scale, weigh out 14 grams of coffee for your double shot, the seven grams per ounce. Make shots using that. See how that tastes. See if you like it. Is it strong enough? Is it robust enough? Does it give you enough flavor? Most people tend to go higher numbers, right? Like these 18 grams is more a response to people like myself who have pushed 21 for many years. And why have someone like me doing 21 grams, right? Because I just like the richness of the flavor that way. It's technically the amount of coffee for 3 shots, right? But I think that you get a nice resistance to it. You can you could do a pretty fine grind that would be a little bit coarser. God, that doesn't make any sense. But I'm thinking like if you really want to have, if you use 14 grams, you need to have a level of fineness to create the resistance to the pressure of the water to give you the extraction with the volume in the time frame that you need. That's really the balance of what we're doing in espresso, is we're trying to get so much volume from so much coffee with so much water within so much time. That's kind of the whole battle of espresso as a barista, is to figure out what those parameters are. And really a lot of this talk that I've seen from like modern baristas, YouTubers talking about 18 grams in, 36 grams out. These are just ways for them to help quantify much more simpler the process of making espresso than I have been doing, right? Because it's very easy for you to take a scale. You take your scale, you take your portafilter, you tear it, you fill it with coffee, 18 grams, you do your whatever tool doodling, you put it in your machine, lock it in, put the scale under the portafilter, put the cup on it, tear it out, hit the button, brew it. When it says 36, I'm done. Super, super simple, right? I see it in like espresso competitions all the time, like this whole trend of like 1836 coming on. As a judge, I base my scoring and my evaluation on what's in the cup, right? Solely what's on the cup. But as a barista, I look at it and I think that's just bullshit, right? I really don't think that to me, there's very little value in weighing the scale, in weighing the shot, right? What it's telling you is just how much water you're putting into it, right? And people argue, it's going to tell you whatever, but really, coffee, as most people will come to know, is that coffee in general has very low solid mass in it. So you're not really telling anything. You're telling very little over the volume of water that you're pumping through it. So I think that it's a nice way to begin and like get a conceptual idea on how to make espresso, but I don't think it's the panacea that so many people treat it as, because there's so many more factors that are going into espresso in order for you to make a really great espresso beyond just the coffee to water to rate, the in and out weight measurement, right? So where am I going with this? Now, if you ask about 15 to 18 grams, these numbers now, when we talk about, let's say 15 or 18 or 21, these are essentially arbitrary numbers. You can choose any number that you want. Right? If you want to choose 19 grams, fine. 21 grams, fine. Once upon a time, there was, that crazy guy from Australia, Paul Bassett, arguing with us that the new wave in coffee is going to be 35 grams. And you guys are upside down too long, so blood is rushing to your heads down there. You're crazy. Don't understand it. But but the point is that, and Paul Bassett is the very first barista champion of the world. But everybody has, different theories and different things to try, and it's important for you to try it and like prove it to yourself whether or not that's going to be the way for you. And so there was Paul, arguing about it, and we're at an event one year, and he's like, I'm going to show you. He's pumping 35 grams into this. I think we used a triple shot basket. It was just utterly ridiculous. It was like, you crazy Aussies. Mate, you're just all wrong. But, whatever the case would be. And but if you can fit it in there and you can adjust your grind to reflect everything else. I mean, if it works, it works. The pushback with something like 35 in a working environment is like, man, now you're using 35 grams of coffee. So the cost of making that espresso becomes much more higher. Now, even in my case with 21 grams, that's 7 grams more than anyone else is using. Is that right? Yes. No. 14, 6. Yeah, 7. That's 7. I don't know. 7 grams more than everyone else uses. So it's like half. It's like 50% more cost to make that espresso than it is if I had used 14 grams. And so a lot of people would stay with 14. And probably part of the Illy model of getting 14 grams for a double shot is that they're trying to find a way to balance the cost of production to quality. There's always going to be that battle, right? Like you have to balance somewhere there. That has to take a factor into it. So even back in the day, we used to calculate that in a drink, making a double shot of espresso would cost us about $1 to produce. And it's like, so every time we added another double shot to something, we would have to at least calculate $1 for that. And every time we burned a shot, it was $1. So there's $5 gone. And especially when you're starting out, you're trying to make nice espresso, like in a commercial environment, we're trying to make nice espresso, and we were a little bit, blustery about it. So it's like things went bad, dump the shot. But every time you dump the shot, it's $1, $1. So here's our $3 latte. You dropped 2 shots to make it. It's already cost. You're already losing money. You're like, well, I'm losing money on this drink. So, but that's kind of how you build your reputation. Hopefully you're serving great quality drinks. And hopefully that translates into enthusiastic guests who return again and again and proselytize about your beauty in the world and bring more guests to you. Russell, good morning to you. How are you doing? But let's say, so people talk a double shot. Now you can call pretty much, if we think about the Illy standard, so 7 grams per shot, 14 grams makes a double shot. Theoretically, 21 grams makes a double shot, a triple shot. But when we're also talking about shots, we're talking also about volume, right? Not just the quantity of the coffee in the shot, but also how much volume you're talking about, right? And then, so if we were doing that, we'd say like an ounce for a single shot, up to 2 ounces for a double shot. We would have 3 ounces for a triple shot. So you would theoretically have the same ratio of coffee solids in the water with those 3 shots. Where it varies is, now we're trying to like with 18 grams and 21 grams in a double shot, we're trying to concentrate more of those coffee solids in a double shot volume, right? So that's kind of, we're trying to develop more richness in the coffee. That's kind of where these other numbers have come from. Just people wanting to experiment and find a way that suits their needs. And here's the bottom line is that coffee to me is pleasurable hedonism. Right? It's really about your enjoyment, especially in a situation for most of you who are at home. The coffee is a solo pursuit for your enjoyment. And honestly, that's really the only thing that matters. Right? Like in my role as a barista, my viewpoint on it is going to be, my approach to it is going to be a little bit different, because while I am making coffee to suit my own taste, to suit my own fantasies and desires, I also am thinking about how do we make coffee in a way that is accessible for people. Right? We need to make it accessible so that the average person that comes in to try our coffee will find an enjoyable experience, right? I could be a person that totally loves a coffee a certain way, and everybody else hates it, which would be detrimental to the business, but totally fulfilling for me, right? But in your case, at home, you can be that total hedonism about the coffee and just do it for personal pleasure. And that's really the beauty of what you guys get to do over what sometimes I'm limited from doing, right? So I know a lot of people come to the coffee world and they're going to be like, oh, there's all these gurus talking about all these standards, but it's good to know the standard. It's good to know the foundation of the standard. So when it comes to espresso, it's good to know that 7 grams for every shot of espresso. It's good to know that you want to have 8 to 9 bars of pressure. You want to have 195 degrees Celsius water, or 95 degrees Celsius water, 195 to 198 Fahrenheit water. You want to have 1.5 to 2 ounce, or 1 ounce for 1 ounce per shot. So for double shot, you can have an acceptable range of 1.5 to 2 ounces. And you want to know that maybe that you're going to have to make that shot of any size, whether it's a single shot, double shot, or triple shot. You want that shot to complete in under 30 seconds or around 30 seconds. And it's good to know those things. Those are kind of the important factors for you to consider as you're working with coffee, trying to find your path for your coffee. But use those only as a guide. Like, as you've seen on the episodes here when we're making espresso, is that these are all the parameters that I think about with making espresso. But the moment we actually go to make the coffee, most of that just goes out the window. Like, once we make the coffee, like, I know that I would like to use 21 grams. I know that I would like to use 8.5. I would like to use 1.5 to 2 ounces. I know I would like to have that shot complete within 25 to 30 seconds. I know that I want to have 8.5 to 9 bars of pressure. I know that I want to have a certain temperature. Once I start to make the coffee, all of that goes out the window. That's all nice details, but once you're going to make it, it's too late. I mean, you can measure the coffee, you can watch the water, but really, what we talk about here is allowing the coffee to speak to us, right? And so it all just flows, and when it's done, it's done. Like, my mom's always asked me, she's always like, when I'm cooking this, how long do I cook it for? I said, well, till it's done. And she's like, what does that mean? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know what it means. She's like, how long? I said, I don't know. Because now there's so many factors involved. Like, if you're oven cooking it, what is your temperature? And then are you just baking it like in the oven, or are you running the convection? That's going to have a factor on. And so my mom gets frustrated, and she's always like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's done when it's done. And it's just like coffee. Coffee will tell you when it's done, and it just happens, right? So don't sweat it. But of course you're going to sweat it, because if you're just starting out, there's so many things you don't know. Like, it's easy for me, someone that's been in the field nearly 25 years, to be like, yeah, don't sweat, it's so easy. Yeah, I get it. You're like, yeah, dude, you've been doing it how long? You don't even think about it. It's true. I don't even think about it. I just do it. So, but these are the factors to consider, right? If you keep those in mind, and as you play with your coffee, maybe make notes on it. I mean, really, that's what we encourage our baristas to do, is to have a notebook, make notes, and build upon that experience. Brian's here. Man, what's going on, man? How are you doing? Andrew says, know and understand the rules to determine if you want to follow them and how to best. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is the greatest way to put that. So if I want to make an espresso cappuccino, how much do I use? And if you want to make an espresso cappuccino, how much do you use? It's up to you. It's totally up to you how much you should use. Now, you're starting out, so you're like, well, I need a baseline. Okay, use 14 grams. 14 grams of coffee for a double shot. Put it in your portafilter, right? So you can take this. Right? So I saw another question that we probably do. What tools should I buy to make espresso? Here's what I'm going to recommend to you. Get yourself a nice temper. This is the greatest tool I think any barista or person that wants to make coffee can buy. Number one, this is it. This is the only tool that I think I need, right? Like all this other stuff, WTT, whatever, rakes and all this, superfluous. I don't even forget it. Now, I realize over 20 years talking here. So, take that with a grain of salt. You're going to be sitting on, well, I should use tools because I can't do distribution. Yeah, I couldn't do distribution either. I had to learn how to do it. It's always a process. Get this, and then maybe get yourself a scale. But don't get this scale. Okay, this scale sucks. And let me tell you why. This scale, which is a very good scale, which I really do like overall, but if I turn it on, here's what I don't like about it. This tenth of a gram. For the new beginner to have a scale with resolution of a tenth, a hundredth, or thousandth of a gram is utterly ridiculous. Because you know what? You don't need to care for yourself about what's a tenth of a gram or deeper resolution, right? You're going to be sitting there. I got 14 grams. I got 14.2 grams. I got to muck with it now for those 0.2. That really doesn't matter. You're at a point where it doesn't matter. Forget that. Just get yourself full resolution. What you want is better resolution for your scale, meaning that instead of having a scale that resolves down to a tenth of a gram, get one that resolves down to a single gram or even at least single gram. Forget the 2 gram. Those suck. Single gram, whole gram resolution is all you're going to need because otherwise you might sit there with your little tiny demi-tasse spoon trying to pick out a tenth of a gram. For God's sake, don't do that to yourself. Like I built my scales using full gram resolution scales, and that's plenty. So here, take your scale, and you got that scale there. Now, fill it with coffee, put the 14, grind it up, put the 14 grams in there, right? And then once you have your 14 grams, then you can do your mucking around with trying to move it around. Yeah, try to get even distribution, right? You'll see me do this kind of stuff, but really just try to get it even and across. You don't want divots. You don't want too much mounding. You just want it all across. And if you get the right size portafilter, like this is a double basket. Yeah, this is a double basket portafilter, and 14 grams will readily fit in here, and you can just kind of do this kind of thing, and then you can just press down on it. Now, there's a whole technique of how to hold it and tamp and ergonomics that I'm really, really big on. Like when I'm training people, I'm super hardcore about how to hold it and how to do it. But if you're just at home, just trying to figure it out, just kind of do something like this. Don't start doing this kind of thing, right? You see all these baristas in the field and on TV, and they're all don't do that. Don't do any of that. Learn how to do that correctly, because you know what? Repetitive stress disorders are a real thing, and you don't want to injure yourself, and you can injure yourself doing this the wrong way. So forget all that. Just press down on it, or just press down as much as you can. Try to make it all even as you're pressing down, and then put it in your machine and start brewing, and you're going to see what happens. If it comes out really fast, so here's the thing, you want to have, let's just give you some parameters. So we want to have a total volume, so the double shot, a total volume of 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces. That's a range, right? 1.5 to 2 ounces. We want to have no more than 2 ounces by 30 seconds. And meaning 30 seconds from the time you press the button until you stop it, until it reaches that point. 30 seconds, right? Total volume. Just think of it that way. Run it through and see how long it takes to fill to 2 grams, to 2 ounces. And you can use, if you have it, don't buy it, for God's sake. Don't buy anything. I'm totally against buying stuff. You can use something like this. This is a graduated shot glass, right? So buy a graduated, or if you have one, if you're a drinker, you probably have one, because Lushes always have this kind of thing, but you're going to have your graduated shot glass, and so let's say 2 ounces, and you'll use that, and you're going to put that, and you may have a one that like this is kind of small, so it doesn't really fit. Okay, that's a problem. Try to get one that's bigger. Here, this one is from Espresso, so that's nice and large. If you have one that's larger, this just makes it so much easier because nothing drives me more insane than having it like drip over the sides or like that. Or maybe you have two. But either way, you're going to measure it out, and you're just going to look for it to be 30 seconds. At 30 seconds, stop, and then see, okay, is it somewhere between here and here, right? If it is, okay, you've got a good grind that gives you enough resistance to the flow of the water so that it slows it down and creates extraction that will have you get this volume in 30 seconds. That's good. That's what you want. And that's kind of like a way to like hack your way through it to see. And if you're getting, so if you turn on the machine and it starts and it goes really, really fast, too coarse. If it comes out and it's like drip, drip, and it's slowly rising, and it's 30 seconds here, 45 seconds, too fine. Reduce, coarsen up your grind. So these are ways to just hack through. So you're really just using this as a hack to see, okay, I need to change my grind. What grind should I set? Who knows? I don't know. I can't tell you. You have your own grinder. I could tell you I have this set to 1.8, but what that means nothing. It means nothing. So use that as a way to like hack your way through making it, at least getting close to your fine thing. So if you're putting 14 grams and you're tamping here and you're getting, your 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces of volume in 30 seconds, man, you should be pretty awesome and pretty close to nice quality espresso. The question is, after that point, what kind of espresso did you buy to begin with? If you're buying some of the rubbish that's out there, it may never taste amazing. It'll just taste fine. But if you buy really exquisite coffee, actually don't buy exquisite coffee. Don't buy exquisite coffee. Like, exquisite coffee is like, you could buy truly exquisite coffee. But if you don't really have your functions under control, you're just mucking it up. Just go buy a big bag at Costco and start making espresso, right? Buy a big bag at Costco, right? They're like, 3 pounds, right, of coffee, or 2.5 pounds of coffee, and just start making shots. Just start making shots. Look at the volume, give it a taste. Taste terrible, toss it. Make another one, taste it, terrible, toss it. But pay attention to how much volume you're getting and how much time. But use a timer. Use your phone timer, use whatever your timer, and just kind of like try it. And if you buy cheap coffee, like I'm saying, like you go to Costco, you buy like that cheap stuff that they have there in a big bag. It's darkly roasted. It's all like, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. But what you're getting is repetition. You're getting that experience, and you're trying to pull the shot. You're trying to get his best quality of coffee out of it. Right? That's really the whole game there. Like how does someone like myself, who's worked in the field, get to make nice quality espresso? Because I've done it thousands and thousands of times, over and over again. And if you do it thousands and thousands of times, you start to get good at it, right? So the key is just to go and start making a shot of espresso. So your spouse may be like, what are you doing? You've been making espresso all day long. Are you just dumping it? Yeah, I'm just dumping it, right? Because one day I'm going to be there and I'm going to make this awesome espresso. You're going to taste it, and then you're going to like shower me with love, right? That's the whole goal. So power plants here. What's going on? All of this faff is why I punched out of espresso. If you have the means, then go for it. But I don't know if it necessarily. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how your experience worked out, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be too difficult. I think we make it difficult, right? Like there's all this stuff out there for people that people say, you need to buy this, you need to buy that. I don't think you need to buy most of those things, right? Tamper, for me, tamper is like, to me, the tamper is the tool of the barista. It is everything that you may need. And, the scale is good. Like I've always used scales with training new staff. But really, in many respects, if I think about it now, that's all we ever worried about training baristas, is that good scale, not this 1/10 of a gram resolution BS, and a great temper. And then with that, you can work and build your skills to make really great espresso. Using the tools to get the shot replication easier and more efficient is a good thing. I don't think you need that. I know a lot of people like to use it as shortcuts. To me, there's no shortcuts. You just need that repetition. You need that repetition. And, I also think that if you don't understand from a practical point how to dose and distribute, how to control your tamping from a manual perspective, like you can use all this mechanical gear to do it, then you're always in a position where you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Like, or you're going to be not so, if you're out somewhere and you're like, hey, your friends are like, hey man, you know how to make coffee, make us some coffee. And you're like, well, I don't have my tools. Like you may not say that and be like, I use that excuse, but in your mind, you're like, well, you may lose some confidence because you're like, I don't have the tools that I normally use. I don't have my grinder. Me personally, I give a damn about the grinder. I give a damn about the tools. I give a damn about the machine. I can, in a few minutes time, I am confident that I can make espresso on any piece of equipment out there that I can walk up to. So to me now, like there was a time when I was very much about like, oh, I will only make things in Lumberzocos. I was totally like that guy, right? Totally. It's Lumberzocco or Case Van der Westen all the way. Otherwise, it's just beneath. Now, man, we were out. I was doing an event with Matt a couple weeks ago on his Frappuccino, man. His Frappuccino, you know what, man? It's not Lumberzocco. It's just this, propane fired machine made in the United Kingdom that's from like old school technology. But man, you get out there. You know what you're doing? You can rock it. And we were rocking that machine like a mad dog. Like it was awesome. It's awesome. So I pay very little emphasis to the equipment. The only thing that you really do pay, I really do think the tamper it's just a beautiful tool. And if you have one that's really nice, like this one, like I just feel so passionate about the tamper. In a way that's different than my passion about Lumberzocco, right? Like Lumberzocco is it's like my soul, my soulmate in like coffee. Like I just love it. But this is the one that if I was to go anywhere, I would want to bring this. I can't bring my Linea with me, but I can bring this with me. I don't bring this with me because I'm just not that affected. I will use any tool to make anything anywhere. But I do encourage people to work and develop their skills without the tools, because I think the tools are a panacea that you don't really need. Niels with us. What's going on, man? How are you? Happy New Year to you. Powerplant says, dialing new beans. I hate wasting beans. I dislike warming up time and the cleaning of the boiler. They just built up over time. I hear you in that. I hear you. And that is always, a perennial issue, especially whether you're a new coffee person or a coffee person, even someone that's like myself who has a lot of experience. There can always be times when you have those issues trying to dial your coffee in and get it right. But here's the thing that I've kind of like learned over time is that, the dialing in, I think, is overvalued. Right. Well, and let me just qualify that, right? In my situation, being a working professional, if I'm in a cafe environment and I come in and I see these baristas, they talk about, I'm coming in, I'm going to spend 15 minutes to dial in my grind. Like, stop wasting my money. Stop wasting my time. For God's sake, get to work and like understand, like you should be able to do it in just 5 minutes. Your grinder, like let's say this grinder, this is the Mazda Major, old school. Like this is super old school. Like the newer ones, like the E80s and all that, are super nice and super more capable. If I come into work, here's the thing. Most cafes, at least Spro is like this. Most cafes have a relatively stable environment. Right? Your environmental conditions aren't fluctuating dramatically. Yes, the coffee that's inside the grinding burrs and inside the hopper that whoever didn't clean out is staling at a rapid rate. And If it's sat overnight, it's pretty much toasted. Right? We don't want to use that. Flush that out, pull a shot, see how it pulls. If you're properly trained, chances are you're going to have a very good shot, unless there was some kind of crazy environmental change throughout the night that you were shut down. I have found very little variation from closing to open in our shops. So the need for spending all this inordinate time to like do all of this dialing in, I think is totally crap. Like I'm totally like, what? Like I'll pull a shot, maybe 2 shots, make sure it's close, make sure it's like in where I want it to be, and then we're ready to rock and roll. We're ready to open, because you know what? Here's the thing: in a commercial environment, you're making shots constantly. You're seeing it flow. You're seeing everything happen on a pretty much nonstop basis. So you can make minor corrections, if necessary, to your grind on the fly, in the moment, without necessarily losing a step in quality. Now, I get it, what you're saying, because you're at home. You're not in that kind of environment, so you're like, okay, I don't want to burn my coffee. And burning coffee in a commercial environment is a bit of a different experience, because while I'm burning coffee to make, to check shots, I'm also making money on the coffee as I sell the drink. So that's a whole different world than I bought this nice pound of Geisha for $75, and I want to like make espresso out of it, then now I need to be super careful and necessarily you're going to be very scared about wasting that coffee. So I do get that part of it, but I would encourage you to, but I think also I would encourage you not to be so scared of it, right? Like, I think when you get scared of something, you start to like, you second guess because you don't want to like waste it. But I think if you try to approach it with a little more bravado, it might make the espresso making easier with those coffees, and it might, and making it by making it easier for you, it also can make you more confident subconsciously, and then produce better quality coffee because you're not really worried like, oh, I can't waste the coffee, it's cost too much money. Right? Craig's here. Happy New Year to you, man. Good to see you. How are things in Ottawa? He says, I cannot dose like you do. Coffee is just expensive. I dose out 18 grams of beans and stored in bean cellar tubes. So in the morning, I only have to worry about grind size. I hear you. I totally, and don't get me wrong, I do understand what you're saying and that experience. I just don't have the kind of grinder that I would need, that I could do that easier with, right? Like if I totally cleared this particular grinder out, and I'm going to tell you this without ever testing this, I'm just totally, guessing this on the fly. But if I totally cleared this grinder out and I put 18 grams from a tube that I'd pre-measured in here, and I ground through it and I tried to get as much of it, I'd probably have like 17.8 grams of coffee. Like I wouldn't have the total amount because it would somewhere be stuck inside this machine somewhere, right? There's always a little bit somewhere. So the retention will be a lot higher than, let's say, the old Gen 2. Or all the new ones like the Zerno and a lot of the grinders that you guys use. So I would not recommend that for this kind of grinder. But of course, this kind of grinder is not necessarily designed for that. Because I dial in once, then adjust. From that point, I can drink all my mistakes. I don't care. Well, and that's the thing. It's like I totally understand. Like if you have, we all only have a finite amount of coffee, right, at our disposal, right? Now, in a shop environment, we theoretically have comparatively unlimited amounts of coffee to worry about, right? Like when you have you're in a coffee shop, a coffee bar, and you have 15 to 30 pounds behind you to back you up, you're not necessarily worried about it in the same way about waste as you would if you only have 12 ounces of coffee. You're like, I got 12 ounces of this. I got a pound of this. That means I have 435 grams of coffee. If I use 21 grams, is it going to be 20? See, my math is not very good. 453 divided by 21. I get 21 shots, double shots out of it, right? But if I have 453 and I divide that by 14, let's say 18, then I have 25. I got 2 more shots out of it, 3 more shots out of it than I would have at 21 grams. So these are things that you're going to want to think about. And that's not to say that commercial operators don't think about that. We do. But in the case of myself and Spro, I like the results from 21 more than I did at 14. And I was like, that's what we're going to base it on. We're just going to base our prices off of 21 grams rather than 14. So I understand. I totally do. Oh, what else did our questioner ask? So if I want to make 1 espresso / cappuccino or whatever, how much do I use? And if I want to make 2, do I just make 2 portafilters worth, or just use 18 grams of coffee but let it run longer with 2 spouts to get the same 2-to-1 ratio in both cups? Well, if you run, so he's asking that should he make 2 separate portafilters and then 1 for each drink? Yes, you should absolutely do that. That's the only way it's the only way I recommend doing it. Or do you take 18 grams in here, run it twice the volume, if I understand that correctly? No, don't do that, because you're running twice the volume with the same amount of coffee. You're not going to have the same solid to water ratio, right? You're going to have a much thinner coffee. It won't be as good, and especially if you're making drinks. And like Naomi mentioned, if you're making drinks for yourself, what does it matter? Like here, I'm making drinks for myself while we're on here. It could be the worst coffee I've ever made. I don't have to say that. I could still say it's the greatest coffee in the world, made by a genius, touched by God. And who would ever know, right? Who would ever know? Nobody else is tasting these coffees, right? So I could be using Costco beans and just saying, oh yeah, it's the greatest coffee in the world. It's geisha, right? Actually, I did get geisha from Costco once. But especially if you're going to be making drinks for other people, don't shortcut it. I know there's a question of like, I know it takes longer. It's going to take longer, and that's all right. Let them wait. People may sit around. Your friends may be like, man, he's taking a long time to make that. But once you deliver greatness to them, then they'll be like scared of you. They'll be like, whoa, that's an awesome coffee. Takes a long time to make, but it's awesome. Yeah, that's what you want. You want to make people, you want to deliver to them a great experience, right? You give them something worthy of their time so that they know that you're a god. Let them know that you're a god without saying that you're a god. Never say you're a god. Never say you're a god. Just let them realize it through your coffee. Like, oh, he is a god. Let's see what else. What else did he have here? But I let it run along with 2 spouts to get the same 2-to-1. Yeah, okay. Oh, that was it. That was everything. All right. Yeah. So while we're here talking about espresso, we should probably make some, right? Let me turn on our C camera. Oh, see, it's not live yet. Come on, live. There we go. All right, so now we've got our camera and we've got our espresso machine. So like I said, we don't really need to pay too much attention to everything, but let's do this. Okay, well, let's see. I'm going to turn this on, and we're going to get our coffee here. Again, when you get your coffee portafilter, make sure it's clean. Always make sure it's clean. There, nice and clean basket, super important. Grind your coffee fresh as always. All right, that looks like a decent amount. A little bit lower here, a little bit higher there. Sweep around, right? Just push. I'm really pushing. That's what I'm saying. Curved finger, push it around. We don't want to do any kind of convexing, right? Can't really bend my finger that way. And I just leave a little bit of amount like this. I leave it a little bit like that, and that's good enough. Now, I keep telling you that my standard is 21 grams. Let's see how we do with this one. Oh, you know what? Darn it. I forgot to tear this thing. Here's where the professional comes in. Like, I totally screwed it up. I'm going to toss it. That's really, I don't recommend that at home. I don't recommend that even in the professional field. But we're going to take this again, and let's try this again. We're going to go here. We're going to tear it out. 581.8. See, don't look at the 8. Now let's go back. A little bit different. Now this time we didn't have that divot down here. It's all relatively similar. So we're just going to kind of come around, push it in a little bit. Now that to me feels a little bit high. Even though it doesn't look that high, it just feels high. So I'm just going to get rid of it a little bit, move it around a little bit more. That may be low now. That may be low. So have that little bit of mounding. I like the little bit of a mounding because I like it to spread out when compacted. Oh, come on. You gotta be kidding me. Sometimes it just does that. That time that I flushed the group head, that was not a conscious decision. That was just that was a total unconscious reaction. So here we go again. Let's try it again. I'm going to move it around. I feel torn. I'm kind of on the verge of like, I want to get rid of a little bit, but I don't necessarily want to. I'm going to leave it. I should have dumped a little bit of it. Feels a little bit thick. Okay, now there's our, looks pretty good. Oh, that's heavy, 26.4. Okay, 26.4, that's too much. But again, we're going to roll with it because that's what we do. We roll with it, and we can then make adjustments as necessary. So this is going to explain why I tend to have a lot of difficulty putting this in, because it's typically very full, like 26. And then lock this in. Right. That's why. Okay, there we go. Now, we're going to get our phone and get our timer. And we start the timer. We're going to see what happens. We're going to start the timer. I'm going to put the timer here. I'm going to put the timer there. And get our cup ready. And so we're going to start the timer when we start the flow. All right, now we come around. We're looking for our fluttering. Oh, there. 21 seconds. Oops. A little bit of that blonde. So a little bit of blonding there, right? So that's just telling us right there, stop, 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 stop. That flutter that we saw, stop. We have some bubbles, some burbujas, right? We're going to get rid of our burbujas by. But look at that rich looking coffee. Looks pretty good, I think. All right, let's have a taste now. Oh, also, before we do that, so we got 21 seconds. So I would say that this is fast, right? So here's the thing. And also look at this. We have look at the volume, right? The volume is just around half of the volume of this 3 ounce or 2 ounce cup, right? Or whatever ounce cup it is. So what does this tell us? 21 grams, maybe just around half volume of here. 26 grams, half volume, 21 seconds or so when we had the flutter. What does this tell us? This will tell us that A, use a lot of coffee, so it's costing us a lot more. We're getting a lot less for our geisha than we would. A lot less yield, not a lot less coffee, but a lot less yield. And then the 21, so we got this volume, and the 21 seconds is 26. So it's telling us a couple of things. We've got a lot of coffee fluttering at 21 seconds. So if we want to extend that at that amount, we need to grind finer because we're too coarse, right? So let's imagine if we dropped it down, if we actually dropped it down to 21 grams, it would run a lot faster. So we need to fine up our grind and reduce our quantity of coffee to the proper amount. And by doing that, we're looking to get that greater volume here with just a little more time, right? I like, in specialty coffee association standards, this is 21, 22 second shot. This is perfectly within the parameters of 20 to 30 seconds. I would prefer it to be 25 to 29 seconds. So I would want to reduce the amount of coffee, fine up the grind a little bit more, and then it should bring me to the right position that I want. So here we've got a little bit of orange peel. There's a note of a finishing note of mustard. Not the flavor of mustard, but you know how mustard kind of has that finish that's kind of a little bit sharp? It's got that. Yeah, I think it could be a lot better by making those changes. And so these are the things that, like we talked about today, where if you can consider these different parameters, it can help you to figure out how to make the changes, right? Like I said, we want to have more volume. I would like to have a little more volume. I would like it to be less coffee because I'd save more money. And I would like to elongate the time just a little bit. So in order to do that, I would think that I would need to reduce the coffee down to 21 grams, reduce the fineness to give it a little more resistance, because now we're talking, if we kept the same grind, we're talking less coffee, so the less coffee would give us even lower resistance. So we need to fine it up slightly to maybe maintain the resistance. And that's kind of how my thought process would go for this kind of thing. Nirma says, at a cafe, I want awesome. I will search until I find that. Yeah, it's always a good search. It's always a good search. And I think that a lot of it has to do with trying to find the operator. Right? A lot of coffee, I've been in coffee for a long time, and I know a lot of the coffee operators around America. The few of them I think are really awesome, right? Few of them. Even, I know a lot of the owners of even the glory companies that everybody talks about. Those are good. I'm sure they're all good. But it's few and far between to find great. And I think my friend Anthony Rue owned a place in, of all places, Gainesville, Florida. And they're always in these weird places you never would think about, right? Like Gainesville, Florida had great coffee because the owner, Anthony, was a stickler for it. He really was meticulous about his coffee. He's really paying attention. Troubadour Coffee in Cleveland, Ohio, run by another buddy of mine. Awesome coffee. Again, psychotic kind of owner. To my mind, the best coffee operation is Cafe de Bola in Salt Lake City, again, owned by another friend of mine, John Piquet, another psycho. And when I say psycho, I mean they're kind of crazy. But I say that with a lot of love and respect because, these are guys that take it to the nth degree. They're I would like to be that crazy. I'm a little bit crazy, I think, but not that crazy. They take it to a whole nother level. Right? I'm the operator that's hopefully we're making beautiful coffee. But if you really want to put sugar and cream in it, fine. Like I'm not, I'm the pleasurable hedonism guy. So I'm all about you enjoying your time with me, right? Like if you want me to do certain things like flavored coffees, we won't do that. Like my thing was that, if there was something that I was not willing to do, we just would not have the capability of doing it. We just wouldn't have that there. Like a lot of people like to use syrups. We would make our own syrups, but we didn't have peppermint syrup because maybe if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't make it. And if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't even have it. So we couldn't even offer it to you, even if you wanted it, right? Like if you came to us and like, can I get I don't even know what crazy drinks there are, but can I have whatever? And it's, or can I have a 20-ounce mocha? It's like, I'm afraid we only have 12-ounce cups because I'm against having 20-ounce drinks, right? I'm against that kind of thing, but I'm not going to be here to pontificate to you, the guest, like, well, you're just a peon of coffee understanding who doesn't really deserve the coffee. I'm not going to do that. I don't need to make you feel any certain way. I'll just be like, if you're like, can I get a 20-ounce drink? I'm afraid we don't have 20-ounce cups. My apologies. Oh, okay. What do you have? We have 12 ounce. Okay, perfect. Because 12 ounces is what I believe to be the ideal size for the latte, 6 ounces for the cappuccino. And if you wanted a cappuccino that was 12, we just don't offer. We give you a latte. That's it. We would just give you a latte. Like if you were that kind of like person that was like, can I get a 12 ounce cappuccino? Sure. I don't need to have a discussion with you about what is a cappuccino, what is not a cappuccino. Here's your drink. It's really a latte. We still don't change the way we make it. We just give it to you because but you asked for a cappuccino 12 ounce. Here it is. I know some people may complain like, well, it doesn't have enough foam. Well, you should have ordered the cappuccino. What's the question? There's cappuccino and there's latte. They're not interchangeable. Like if you were married to a twin, your wife would not be okay if you messed around with her sister, right? That's not acceptable. Right? That's not okay. Y'all says I tried this kind of madness before. It didn't go. Oh, you mean we just kind of like doing it? But I do acknowledge the fact that I'm doing this kind of like on the fly kind of espresso making, I guess you'd call it. But I do acknowledge the fact that I do have considerably more shots behind me doing this than the average viewer. Like I can't, I'm not trying to pontificate and advocate for everyone here to do this kind of approach. Because I do realize it's taken me decades to do this, right? Decades of experience. So that's that. But I do encourage people to make as much espresso as you possibly can. And that's why I said, go to Costco, buy the cheap coffee, and just make shots. If you have the time, just make shot after shot after shot, and you're buying the cheap coffee, so it's not really going to cost you a lot of money. Then as you get the better feel for it, then when you're ready and you want to impress like your friends or your loved ones, then you bust out the nice coffee, and then you're making it, and you look all smooth and cool, and you're just kind of like, yeah, this is how we make espresso. Right? This is how we make coffee. Right? Because for example, right, if you're sitting here and you got your machine, and let's say you only do it once a day or like once every blue moon, and you're like, okay, where's my knockbox? Like you can make a drink for yourself, but let's say it's Thanksgiving and your relatives are like, hey man, can I get a cappuccino too? Yeah, man, a cappuccino would be great. And now you're like, I gotta make 4 cappuccinos. How do I do it? Holy God, I'm like in trouble, right? And you're all like sweating, and you've got your like sweater on that looks all like funky, but you're sweating because you're like, I don't know how to do this right. But if you do a lot of shots, then when the time comes, you're just kind of like, yeah, baby, I got this. And you're just kind of smooth, and your relatives are all looking at you like, huh, that's pretty good. And then your loved ones are all, your spouse is kind of like, he does have this, he does have the chops. At least that's what's happening in my fantasy mind, Says I need at least my scale and my WDT. I suggest that you get to the point that you try not to use any of those things, right? Especially that WDT silliness. Get rid of that. Get rid of it. Learn this, man. Learn this. And then, the scale is important. Like I've never been without a scale. Right? Like, even at the shop, we always had scales. And the scales were always on the bar in case the baristas wanted to check their measurements. I think scales are definitely an important part. But I think once you get to the point of, practice, the need for scale is very minimal. It's because our baristas would use it just to check themselves every once in a while. Because my training was such that we would have you do these drills, dosing drills, dose, distribute, tamp, scale, dose, distribute, temp, scale. And you do that multiples of times. And then when it came time for you to pass that section of your training, I had a sheet, 20 executions of this, and you had to scale it. 21, 21, 21, 21. 19 times you've done this 21, 21, 21. If on the 20th time you did 22 or 19, fail. Back to the beginning, start again. People would be upset, right? Like baristas would be upset. They knew it was coming. They knew the expectation. So they weren't like angry, but they were upset. They were like, oh man. But we don't set them up for failure. We try to practice them. And very few people had to redo it. But like if you did it, you would restart and begin again, because the important thing was that we wanted to drill into you that motor muscle memory, that practice. These are artificial ways of practicing and building skills, right? So, and we would burn tons of coffee. We're burning tons of coffee on this, right? Like it's 21, 24, whatever grams it is, 20 times over, 50, 100, 20, 200 times over. We're burning all that coffee. Again, this is sometimes where we would get the Costco coffee because it was cheaper. And, you would do that and just build your skills. And so that way, when the time came that they were working on the bar, on the road, they were pretty confident in hitting those numbers. And if they have a question, they could just, all right, good, and then continue on, right? So I do encourage you to keep a scale, but really after a point, I think it should be for reference rather than to always be leaning on it, right? Because like we show you here, like the coffee does talk to you. So even if we're at 26 grams and, 21 seconds and half the volume we might want, the shot itself is still a very nice shot. Like it's still a nice espresso to enjoy. It just may not be the most perfect espresso in the world, the God shot that people always talk about pursuing. So Powerplant says, for the novice, the tools enhance replication of shots and teach them how things should be. I understand. I get that. And I think it's good. I think it's good. I don't think that they don't have a place. I just want to encourage you to get to the point where you don't need them. Espresso and Bikes is with us. What's going on? Happy New Year to you as well. I want to let you know your videos bring me a lot of joy, and I always look for. Oh, wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Says a lot of you guys are at a higher level as well. Yeah, there's a good level of experience here. That is nice. He says, I pull out the cheap coffee beans when my daughter comes over. I love you, but I don't love you enough to give you nice coffee. That's amazing. She wouldn't know the difference with the extreme amount of sugar she uses. It's undrinkable. I love that. That's totally probably something I would do totally as well. So you've come from my own loins, but I can't give you nice coffee. Like it just, I birthed you, but no. It wasn't worth the effort. It wasn't worth it. Oh my gosh. Oops. Powerplant said XP usually does usually equal proficiency or experience. I'm thinking XP, like Windows, but not always. There are lots of craftspeople who have done it for years at an average to low quality. Unfortunately, you also have to be curious, and curious and open is definitely an important aspect. But I do think that like everyone here, I'm presuming has a level of curiosity and openness beyond the average. I mean, if you're willing to sit here and listen to me pontificate about whatever nonsense I've been talking about coffee for the last year or so, or whatever, or even one episode, and you stayed through the entire episode, you're pretty much curious and open more so than other people. So, but I totally agree. You can't just and that's why I say about looking at the operator of a coffee shop. If you're looking for that great coffee shop, is that you have to find the place that's really different, right? There's a lot of operators now today in modern specialty coffee that have an understanding of quality and marketing and making themselves look cool. I wouldn't necessarily go to them. I wouldn't even even if I was I wouldn't travel to them, right? Like I wouldn't. There's a lot of these well-known coffee places that I know people talk about that I would not go to. Like I'm like, well, I mean, if I happened to be in their city, yeah, I'd go check it out. But I'm not going to make a journey to it. Troubadour, Volta in Gainesville, Cafe de Bola in Salt Lake City. I'll make a journey to those places, right? Another place that's really good is in Illinois. Oh man, what's the name? I can totally see the building. It's got coffee. It's in an old garage, automotive service garage. It says big red letters, coffee across the side of it. Tom owns it. I went there. There are certain places that I would make a journey to go visit. But a lot of these other places, yeah, if I'm in your city, I'm going to check you out. But I'm not going to make a trip to it, right? Omiel says, I get lots of bad coffee at shops. Yeah. And also one thing to consider is that, and I'm not saying that you guys wouldn't know this, but also one thing I try to keep in mind as I visit coffee places on my own is, is the coffee bad or is it also just not to my taste, right? I think we should be cognizant of the difference that there's coffee that's not well made and not well sourced, not well roasted, not well anything, versus coffee that is just not to our taste, right? I'll give you a great example, geisha. I've experienced geisha since it really hit the scene back in 2005, multiple times over. My friends, buy it. I don't really buy geisha because I don't really think that it's all that awesome. I'm not totally enthralled by it. But I can still recognize that it's an excellent high quality, or it can be a very excellent and high quality coffee. It's just not necessarily to my taste. So I know a lot of people love bright and light coffees, especially in the espresso realm. They like that super bright kind of experience. That's not my thing, right? I can drink it and I can taste it and I can appreciate it for being for its qualitativeness. But I don't necessarily seek it out, right? Because it's just not to my taste. So I think that's one thing that we should also consider. Is it bad or is it just not to my taste? And then also when I go to coffee shops, my bar, I'll be honest with you, when I go to coffee shop, my bar for enjoyment is fairly low, right? Recently I've been to some coffee shops while I was out traveling and it's I just would like a coffee with my pastry. And you know what? It may be dirty. It may not be great, but it's fine, right? As an accompaniment to my pastry, I'm okay with that. So I try not to be too, I think I've reached a point now where I'm not too judgmental like I was when I was a younger barista, when I was a new barista. When I was a new barista, I was terrorizing places. I was oh, this is not, what's the drink? This is not a cortado. These people have no idea how to make cortados. Who does? If I think about it, I was yeah, dude, they may have on the menu, but who does know how to make a cortado? Nobody knows how to make a cortado. Very few, especially in 2007, very few places knew how to make cortados. Very few places even knew what cortado was. So it's all right, now take it easy there. Take it easy. Naomi says, a super downer for me is ordering an oat milk latte and the milk starts to separate, curdle, and look. Really? Oat will separate? I mean, I don't know oat so well because we never really used it because I just didn't like it. Meaning I like when oats started to become more of an interesting proposition we started to play with oat milk, and because my paradigm at Spro is that we want to make things as much as we can. So we started by experimenting with making our own oat milk, right? So we would take the oats. Basically, we would take the rolled oats, like Quaker rolled oats, put them in a bin, add the water, maybe add some dates, blend it all together, put it in there, and then overnight or a few hours, bag it, strain it, press it, and then drink it. Man, delicious. God, I really liked it. I was like, oh, this is good. Like, we're rolling here. This is awesome. Let's make a cappuccino. Man, that cappuccino changed our trajectory with oat milk completely. I was like, we're never going to make this. We're never going to offer this. Because why? So oat milk is oat solids in water. What happens when you hit it with a steam wand? Oatmeal, right? Like this pitcher turned into oatmeal because all those particulates of oat hydrated, solidified, and expanded with the heat and became oatmeal. And I was like, what the hell? It's like, that's disgusting. We can't use that. That's not going to work. So, but why am I against it? Because, it made me realize at that moment that the only way to keep oat milk in a liquid state was to heavily industrialize it. Like, you have to do heavy industrialization to the milk in order for that to stay liquid. And I was like, no, we cannot do that. We're already bad enough with soy milk, but we're not going to do that. And soy milk was another challenge too, like with your experience with the oat milk, is that sometimes, and this didn't happen all the time, it happened with higher acidity coffees more regularly. But man, and especially at Spro, we would spend 5 minutes making your drink because we're pouring it by hand, and then you're like, "Can I get soy milk with that?" And you're like, "Sure." And then you hit that soy milk, and it just, it's like, son of a bitch. I was like, that really. But luckily, a lot of like soy people were used to that. They were like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." It is, because that looks disgusting. Right? Because it breaks into these like solid sparkles. You're just like, I'm not gonna drink that. Like, I wouldn't drink that. But a lot of soy people really were okay with that, and I was like, wow, okay, man. But I wanted to ixnay that soy milk the moment that started. But we had to have something for non-dairy drinkers. So that was our one thing that was like, the give-in for that kind of thing. Amiel says the milkman in Edinburgh has a 5 out of 5 public recommendation, and I had the worst coffee experience in recent. Oh man, I'm so sorry to hear that. Man. Maybe it's one of those things where like, well, maybe it's not one of those things, but I was just thinking like, there's a saying that when you look for Chinese restaurants, like among Asian people, I think it's how it works. But when you look at Chinese restaurant reviews, look for the worst reviews. Look for the ones that are like 3-star reviews, because those are the ones that are probably making really good food. I don't think that applies to coffee, but maybe the ones that you'd look for in a review is not just, oh, the coffee's awesome, the coffee's great, I love it, the pink drinks are beautiful, but maybe look for the ones where like the owner is grouchy, right? The owner's grouchy, he's unaccommodating. That could be a sign of like, ooh. Because it's like if I go to barbecue joints, right? Like here in Maryland, we have a lot of barbecue joints. And you go to the barbecue, there's a company called Mission Barbecue. And actually, I like Mission overall because every time I've gone there, the meats they're smoking are always served on point, right? They're always like nicely cooked, good moisture, good juiciness, decent flavor, like good. It's like solid barbecue. If you want to have some barbecue, you can have it. The thing that I don't like about Mission and pretty much any barbecue joint outside of true barbecue regions is that they're helter-skelter with their sauces. It's like, we have 14 different sauces. You can have this Old Bay sauce. You can have South Carolina sauce. You can have Eastern Carolina. You can have Western Carolina. You can have Tennessee. You can have Memphis. You can have... And I'm like, dude, decide on a sauce. And that's your barbecue. That's your deal. Like if I go to like City Market in Luling, they have a sauce. They have their sauce. It's their sauce or no sauce. You just don't have a choice. There's no, oh, if I went to them and be like, hey man, do you have some Eastern Carolina like apple cider vinegar with chilies sauce? I think those guys would put me on a cross. I would expect them to do that, right? So I think that if you can look at reviews and find places where the owners are cantankerous beings, that probably means that they're like not willing to accommodate sugar, right? Like, what? You want soy milk? Get the hell out of here, right? You get out of my shop, that kind of thing. Maybe those are the places that you should be looking for to see, like, okay, that should be good. Like John Piquet's kind of like that. Like it's his way. He might kick you out. I think he's accommodating, but he's got that Japanese sensibility to him. So he's like, maybe he won't kick you out. You go to Troubadour in Cleveland, Tony will kick you out. He'll be like, no, get out. Just get out. Look, right on. Proplan says, positive correlation of IPA lovers and high acid coffee lovers. Yeah, man. I'm not an IPA guy. I'm totally, like, I just think these high IPAs, I'm like, why am I drinking marijuana? Like, I don't want that. I don't like that flavor. I'm not into it. Doesn't mean that it's bad, of course, but just like, it's just not to my taste, right? Omnia says, I was at Panther Coffee in Wynwood last weekend, and it was awesome. Definitely at home, you can minimize your risk. Ah, yes. Actually, Panther, I've known the owner of Panther since he used to work for Stumptown. And him and his wife moved to Miami many years ago now. And yeah, they're always solid. They should be a solid place. I've not been there, but I would expect them to be solid. Naomi says that any plant milk can separate. I didn't know that. Kent says 5 out of 5 from one customer who also happened. And Namio says, I love IPA, but he knows that I hate it. That can explain. Yeah, totally. And I think that it's important when you consider a reviewer, a YouTuber, some coffee guy espousing his beliefs on YouTube, especially that, it's important to understand what they like, right? Like when I look at coffee reviews or food reviews, I always want to see over time. I would prefer to see over time so that I understand what the critic likes and doesn't like. Because sometimes we're in alignment, sometimes we're not, right? And I think that's fine. Like, especially if you're not in alignment, I still find value in it, because if I know that we're not in alignment on certain things, as I read what they're saying or they're writing, I can determine, oh, maybe that will appeal to me more, right? So, like, for example, if I tell you that, like, that I don't like IPAs, that I don't like necessarily high brightness coffees. But if I tell you that, oh yeah, well, this coffee's got really high brightness, so it's not really to my taste, you can be like, that's the coffee I want to go try. Because he doesn't like it, so therefore I will probably like it. Right? I think that's a very, very proper way to consider what blowhards on YouTube will be telling you. Palpan says, probably dozens of cafes nationwide who will never get a PR budget, but are awesome. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I tend to find that the places that I like, that I will gravitate towards, are these small places that don't have PR budgets, that don't have the glory and love of all these like slick joints. I tend to like those, and probably because that's the kind of operator that I like. I would like to be as just a small, kind of quality focused kind of operator. Naomi says, I think it has to do with the degree of acidity in the coffee. Now, I do think that you're onto something there, because I did find that with the soy milk, if we had higher acidity coffees, most of the breakage would happen with the soy milk. So I do think that has a big part of it. But then sometimes it wouldn't break. So it could be the age of the or how long the soy milk had been open for as well, exposed to the air. I never really understood it terribly well. And then sometimes we would have issues with regular milk, because we would buy regular milk from this local dairy, the whole grass-fed, high-quality stuff, And then maybe twice a year, they would have problems with the quality. The milk quality was the same, right? Flavor-wise, taste-wise, but for whatever reason, as we're stretching and steaming it, it just wouldn't hold. Suddenly, it would just, really, we're stretching it. And you could do a very hard stretch, like where you got like huge bubbles on it. you pull it down really hard, and you look, and the bubbles just evaporated. No bubbles at all. You're like, what the hell is going on here? And we would ask our rep, and he'd be like, I don't know. And we kind of came to the point where they kind of thought that it was the homogenization plates that were getting old and needed to be changed or something like that. And homogenization plates, this is how it's explained to me, so I don't know if that's true or not, but basically they're these screens that they press the milk through, right? So typical milk processing, you harvest the milk from the cows, and that milk has a natural milk fat content of like around 4%, I think it is, 4 to 4.5%. And then typically you will, after you pasteurize it, or whatever, at some point in time, you will separate the fat, in commercial production, separate the fat from the milk, from the water, the liquid. So this is now skim milk, and this is all milk fats. Then when it comes to making milk products, okay, you make skim milk, you let it go. Pasteurize it, bottle it, done. But then if you want to make whole milk, you take the fats and the skim milk, you mix it together at 3.5 to 4% milk fat content. And this is going to be true for like half and half, which is 10% milk fat content, and then a heavy cream, which is 20 to 40%, depending on where you're buying it from. You're then going to run that through something called the homogenizer, which then, because if you've ever seen creamline milk, right, from the farms, if you look at creamline milk in the glass jar, you'll see that after time it separates and you have to shake it back together. The homogenization process actually presses it through a screen under pressure. I don't know. But basically what it does, I guess maybe it shears it into it, but it basically creates an emulsification of the fats into the skim milk so they never separate. And supposedly this screen would wear out, get to the point where like it would affect the milk's ability to hold the bubbles. I never understood. And I've never seen that happen with commercial milk. I've only seen it happen with this locally produced creamery milk. So it would happen like maybe once or twice a year on like a batch of like deliveries, and then it would be done. And so we just kind of like live with it. God, this is the worst. Mom says they have too much. Mom knows mission. Oh no, they have too much. Just give me one sauce. That's all I want. That's why I like these like hardcore cafes. They're just like, this is how we make coffee. Okay. I may not like it. I may hate it. I may think, oh God, I hate that coffee. The owner's a dick. I don't like it. But they're doing it their way. And I can only respect that, right? Paraplant says, funny how soup Nazi can apply to coffee. Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in my years of doing business, I have kicked people out. Not in the Spro years, because by the time I got to doing Spro, I was a lot more experienced, right? I think a lot of times you get crazy because you don't have the experience, and you're using hubris and bravado to compensate for that. And I think that's like what I mentioned in the past when I talked about the first 5 years of your career. Like you learn a modicum of information, and now you've got a little bit of information, but you've got a lot of hubris to cover your lack of knowledge, and you try to use that as a cover. So yeah. Now, as I got more experience, I was kind of like, whatever. Like even now, it's like, I don't worry about it. Like, and that's probably why the reason that's going to be a big reason why, like, I tell you things like, those tools like WDT, that's stupid. I don't need those. You don't need those. You don't, because you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter that much. Like you can work it. But if you're enjoying using those tools, I have nothing against it. I can only encourage you to, don't rely upon them too much. Don't rely upon them too much. No soup, no coffee for you. That's what I said. No coffee for you. All right. Well, oh man, it's already 90 minutes. All right, time for me to go. I've got a new project my aunt wants me to work on. We have this thing in the Philippines called the kudkuran, and basically it's a way to scrape the coconut meat out of the coconut, like we did for the suman yesterday. So she was like, I told you to make this. I was asking you to make this for a while. I said, I don't remember you asking me to make this. She's like, yeah. Something to mount. So this kukuran is basically like this like blacksmith, grotesque looking tooth blade, right? And you do this, and it's mount. My dad brought it from the Philippines back in like 1971, mounted on this box, and it sits on the floor, so it's really low. And now that my aunts and my parents are older, it's a lot more difficult for them to sit on the floor and do this, right? So they're like, she was like, can you make something we can mount this on that can be higher, like a chair height? So I'm like, oh yeah. I'm gonna start working on that today. Yeah, I don't get it because I never watched Seinfeld. There's a couple shows that I never watched during the 90s. That's Friends and Seinfeld that most people here in America watched and know intimately. I know really almost nothing about it. The only thing that I knew about Seinfeld was that I thought back then Julia Louis-Dreyfus was kind of hot. I was like, oh, she's kind of my speed. Right? She actually came to my shop once. I wasn't working. But when they were shooting the movie, the television show Veep, one of the main characters in Veep used to be one of our regulars when he was in town. Like I only saw him a couple times because he only came in certain days. And but my staff was always like, yeah, he was here again. I was like, oh, that's awesome. So that is. And then one day, I think he brought Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I was like, ooh, nice. All right. So hope you have a great one. And see you next time.